Welcome to Dig Deep, the mining podcast. In this podcast, we go deep into mining news, hot topics, and live interviews with mining professionals and leading figures in the mining industry. Introducing your host, Rob Tyson, founder and director of Mining International and Mining International Executive, a leading global mining recruitment and headhunting agency.
Hi, mining community. Welcome back to another episode of the Dig Deep, the mining podcast. And today's guests are Laura Benger and Sarah Garvey, who work for Miners Promise, who are a specialised trauma-informed crisis support agency within our industry. They're a registered charity providing practical, emotional and financial support to mining and the resources sector families and communities in times of crisis, which I think is really important, obviously, in today's environment. So that's welcome both Laura and Sarah to the podcast. How are you doing, ladies?
Really well, thanks, Rob. Coming to you live from sunny Australia.
Yeah, and obviously you're active podcast listeners and listen to this podcast. So I wondered if you can just tell us individually a little bit about your background before obviously we speak more about Miners Promise. So I'll start with yourself, Laura. I just wondered if you can just tell us a little bit about yourself and your background.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Look, long story short, moved over from the UK to the Pilbara in northwestern Australia when I was 6 years old and grew up in mining towns all over the country. And then lived in a FIFO family, flying in and flying out from Perth. So love of the mining industry, have grown up in and around it. Gone through multiple different paths in my career from, pharmaceuticals, medical devices, healthcare, manufacturing, and then found myself back in the mining space.
Great. And Sarah?
Well, mine's a little bit different, Rob. I've worked for Miners Promise now for 6 years, and this has been my first interaction with mining. Prior to Miners Promise, I've had a variety of different roles and in an incredible amount of different industries. So I was general manager for the Australian Lottery and Newsagents Association, marketing manager for West Australian Ballet, children marketing manager for the variety of the children's charity. So it's been quite a varied, but all of my roles have been in the not-for-profit space. So I've really dedicated my career to our not-for-profits, but Miners Promise has been the most rewarding, I'd have to say.
Yeah. Thanks for those introductions. Just wondering if you just tell us a little bit about Miners Promise, and obviously to just tell us a little bit about the organisation's purpose and how you've been obviously serving the Australian mining community. So I'll start with yourself, Laura.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Look, we are a charity that was founded in 2010, but essentially the concept of Miners Promise started much earlier than that. So if we wind back to the 14th of May 1991, where unfortunately Steve Fitzroy was fatally injured in an underground mining accident in Norseman, Western Australia. So that's part of the Pilbara region, Western Australia. And unfortunately, he was 35 years old when we lost him from the industry. So his wife, Helen, was left behind in her mid-30s with 3 children under 7 to navigate what life looked like after Steve. So Helen navigated that the best she could with the support around her. And from that, she learned a lot along the way about what supports were available, what supports were not available, and all of the things she needed to navigate in that tragic pathway that no one ever wants to walk. So Helen took the time to write a book about her experiences, which was called Just a Number. So she released that book, which was, I guess, a bit of a cathartic release for her and explaining some of the trials and tribulations that she encountered along the way. So as a result of that, she had a lot of people reach out to her who were either in a similar situation or, were experiencing, unfortunately, loss of their loved one as well, and started to form this little bit of a community. And it just became very, very clear that there was a gap. There was a gap in the support space for people who have lost family members through a fatal mining accident, within Australia, and Miners Promise was founded based on that. So fast forward to where we are now. Miners Promise now continues to live that purpose. So we've obviously gone on a journey ourselves as an organisation over the last decade, but essentially our purpose holds true. And, you know, we're here to support those people that have been, I guess, feeling lost, hopeless. What's the path forward? And, you know, we aim to shine a light in that space, and Sarah can take us through a little bit more of the detail in that. But yeah, we're unfortunately an organisation that we wish didn't exist. We wish that there wasn't a need for us, but we're very, very proud and grateful to serve the Australian mining community.
Yeah, and I just wonder if you can explain the scope of services and obviously the regions that you cover within Australia. And obviously I know Australia is a pretty large country.
Yeah, so we actually support the whole of Australia. So any person who is working in the mining sector within Australia, so every state in Australia is covered by Miners Promise, and we're there to support anyone agnostic of company, agnostic of resource that they're mining, whether it's mining or oil and gas, so resources sectors in general, and we're there to support them however they need to be supported. And that's really the point of difference with our service. We will help people move forward and find that pathway forward in their own way, in their own time. And it's really dictated around that person-centred approach and what people need throughout their grieving process, and that year following, usually, to support them to move into the next part of their life.
And a question for you, Sarah. What are some of the immediate challenges that families face following obviously a fatal mining accident? And what role does the Miners Promise play in supporting them during these obviously very challenging times?
Absolutely. Rob, look, families are experiencing immeasurable grief. They're in shock. Nothing can prepare families for a workplace fatality. Their loved one goes to work and they're expected to come home. The shock, the grief, it's unfathomable. We provide much needed emotional, practical and financial support, and of course advocacy as well. Look, our families have no knowledge or understanding of what's about to come and the processes required following the death of a loved one at work. The way we start and what we do to support families, we start by reaching out to the company involved. We explain who we are and what we do, and that we're here to assist them and support the family. If we don't have the family's contact details, which sometimes we don't, we're looking for that company to then explain to the family that there is a specialised company, a specialised support system available for them when they're ready. It takes time sometimes for families to be able to recover from the, well, not recover, but for them to be ready to reach out to us and have our team support us. Sometimes it's immediate. The way we support our families is through what we term our family support advisors or counsellors, if you will, Rob. We term them as FSAs. FSAs, they're really, really special human beings, and they're grief and bereavement specialists. Each family, we pair each one with a dedicated FSA. This makes the family's life that they're just dealing with just one individual. They're not overwhelmed by dealing with many people who are all with best intentions trying to support them, but our FSAs are dedicated to that family, and they'll reach out immediately to the family once we have their contact details. And the sooner that we have the families under our care, the more support we can provide to them in the first stages of this of overwhelming shock and grief. FSAs will provide immediate emotional support, and we'll walk the family through the steps and the stages and all of the things that are going to occur in the coming weeks and months, all the things that they can expect to happen now that they have lost their loved one in a workplace accident. And this includes things like liaising with the coroner's office, WorkSafe here in Australia, work cover, the funeral home. There are so many things, there's so many processes that need to happen following a workplace fatality. Our FSAs help families prioritise things as well. There are a lot of things that need their immediate attention. And we try to help them slow down the pace for some things and identify things that can be taken care of potentially down the track, and try and give them some space to grieve. lot of competing pressures in those early days, as you can imagine, for our families, and we just try to help them stay in control of some of the things that are happening. Miners Promise support, we not only work with the family, but we also work with the company involved. We provide expert advice on the industry best practice around supporting the needs of those affected by workplace tragedy. So we'll act as a conduit, as a liaison with the family, providing companies with the ways that the immediate needs of families and what they can do to support the families in the immediate future and going forward. We can act as a sensitivity auditor and a sounding bar for companies, and we'll generally work with the company involved for around about 12 months, often up until the first anniversary. And we can provide guidance on memorials, setting up funds for setting up trust funds for children of those killed, guidance on what kind of communication the family would actually like from the mine site themselves. These are all really incredibly sensitive issues. And yeah, we work closely with the company and the family for the best outcome for those involved.
And Sarah, I'll stay with yourself. I just wondered if you could share some sort of personal stories where Miners Promise has made obviously a significant impact in the life, obviously, of a bereaved family.
Yeah, look, we have supported 12 families following workplace fatalities in the mining and resources industry in Australia in the past year and a half. 12 families devastated by workplace fatality. The impact, the best probably to answer that is by telling you that what families say when we support them. So families describe our support as irreplaceable, priceless, immeasurable. We're there when families need us most, and in their darkest of days that they could never possibly imagine, nor would they have wanted to. And we'll walk alongside them, helping them manage and try to understand and make sense of their grief and navigate future without their loved ones. All of the cases that we support are heartbreaking. They all stay with you. Families, the shock, of course, and the grief when you send your loved one to work and they don't come home is just is something that I think hits home for all of us, particularly those that are walking with the family and supporting them as well. It's very difficult to really narrow it down to individual families, but if I can give you some examples of some of the kinds of supports that we're doing. It is so very diverse, and it really does depend on what how the family are navigating that. But we provide dedicated grief counselling for families and extended families. As I touched on, sometimes there's additional advocacy work required when you're liaising with local police and coroner's office to locate loved ones' personal items when they've been killed on site, things like mobile phones, all kinds of things that you wouldn't possibly think of. Liaising with superannuation funds and trustees, of estates, helping them. Unfortunately, many people die interstate, so we assist families in the necessary letters of administration here in Australia when somebody dies without a will. That's something that we will help them navigate, but we also pay for. Helping them liaise, of course, with the employer, with work cover, as I touched on. There are in Australia here, when somebody dies on a workplace, they need to apply for certain things, and we'll assist them and advocate for them there with work cover and with WorkSafe. There are just so many different things. We will source PTSD specialists, trauma specialists, to work with family members. Often that's something that and that's of course incredibly specialised. We'll fly family members in to support the families that are there. The family members that are there, we'll fly them in. We'll provide accommodation. We often find that the loved one may have been the primary earner, so those left behind don't have a source of income for day-to-day bills or any of those things. So of course we'll assist with mortgage payments, loan payments, helping them, source groceries, all of those kinds of things.
What sort of feedback do you receive with obviously some of the families that you have helped, and obviously some of the families that you've probably stayed with for a period of time after such a tragic incident?
Yeah, we find that families generally need our most dedicated support for the first 12 months through that anniversary period there. Families are, of course, incredibly grateful and overwhelmed that there is an organisation such as ours. And as Laura said, we do wish that it wasn't necessary, but it is necessary. So the practical supports that we offer, the advocacy, the financial support, all of those things are so well received by families. But the one thing that they keep coming back to as well is that emotional support that we provide. They know that they have this dedicated family support advisor or counsellor, if you will, Rob. They have that availability to contact that person 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. They're there for them. They're there to provide them with guidance around what's happening, to try to help them make some sense of in a senseless situation. All of the families that we support stay with us as well. So even though that dedicated support may be for the first 12 months, following that period, we still check in with our families for years and years to come, particularly around anniversary dates and those kinds of things. We also have what's called a Miners Promise bereavement group. It's a Standing Together bereavement group. So when our families do start to move forward in that journey of grief, they will join our Standing Together group as well, which provides them with a network of others in a really safe space.
Obviously, these events don't happen all the time, but they do happen. Is there anything companies can do better if such a circumstance does happen? Is there anything you feel that they could be doing? Again, obviously, we're going to be people that listen to this podcast are working for obviously various companies around the world. Is there anything they can be doing better if such a tragedy did occur, and how they interact with people like yourselves and other third parties through that whole process?
Do you want? Are you happy for me to take that one, Laura? Did you want to take that one, or are you comfortable for me to move forward with that one?
Look, happy for you to take that one, Sarah.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I'll add at the beginning is, our goal and the thing that would make this as seamless as possible for both the company and the families is for Miners Promise to be on their emergency response call list. If we can get on that list and be notified straight away, then we can get set to work in making sure the company is as set up for success as possible. The leaders on the company site are supported who are dealing with this tragedy, and obviously we're getting involved with the family as quick as possible. But I'll hand over to you, Sarah. You're the expert.
No, that's absolutely right, Laura. It's the faster we have the families under our care, the more support we can provide them. It's just so important that we do get them. But we have worked alongside so many companies. We have seen the best companies support families following tragedy, and do everything they can possibly do. And unfortunately, we've seen examples that are not as good as that. Companies that when you ask what can companies do following tragedy, they can work with us. They can use the organisation that sadly is experienced in supporting families in times of tragedy. And we do, Rob, have so many companies that we've worked with over the years that have done everything possible that they can possibly do following a tragedy there. And that's using us every step of the way to work with them, together with the families, addressing their needs, helping support the families all of the time. Sometimes there can be a desire to remove yourself from that, but but we have seen the best examples, creating down. Of course, the the immediate support that families need is, can be, financial support and all of those, different things, but it's also understanding what happened to their loved ones. That's a big one. And companies now are addressing that sooner rather than later. They're conducting those internal investigations, and they're sharing those details with the families. And in many years gone by, sometimes families have to wait years for that information. Companies are then, on anniversary dates, they're creating a permanent memorial to those lives lost. They're flying family members in so that they can see, they can be on site, they can be at the location where their loved ones spent so much of their life and their time to meet, and they meeting colleagues and all of those things, and setting up trust funds for children left behind. Yeah, there are some companies that do everything they can following tragedy, Rob, and that's just what we would like to see. We would like to see companies, these tragedies, we'd like to see the tragedies stop, but we're in a challenging industry. So if companies can continue to work with us and do everything they can for their families following, that's our hope.
I think one of the other things as well, Sarah, is the memorial funds that Miners Promise facilitates as well on behalf of the companies. That's something that gets a very strong response from within the company, where people who are working there will pledge funds, which are going to go to the family out of their own pocket, which is very heartfelt. And companies will often match those donations as well. So Miners Promise just facilitates the collection of those funds and donates 100% of those funds, take no fee from that, to the family directly.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point, Laura.
And following on from that, probably stick with yourself, Laura. What challenges does the charity obviously face when it comes to funding and resource allocation? And I suppose, how do you prioritise your activities? I guess if you're going through that whole process, every activity is obviously important, but how do you sort of prioritise what is more important than other activities that you get involved with?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Rob. And at the moment, we are really focusing on the essentials of what the organisation can offer, because that's unfortunately where our funding situation is. So all of our funding comes from charitable donations, which comes essentially from mining companies and any other organisation that wants to donate to our charity. So those funds are not as forthcoming as one would expect. So some of those companies that we've worked with in the past that have worked excellently with us have been providing ongoing donations, and we're very, very grateful for those. But in such an amazing, strong industry that supports Australia, we would love to see mining companies routinely donating to Miners Promise to ensure that the basics are covered when these tragedies occur. Lots of those things we want to do in the proactive space, supporting the organisations and supporting the industry in general, as opposed to responding to an event. We want to try and work in the space to, support and prevent those, but that's limiting us at the moment. So the sheer volume that we've had to work across over the last 18 months, so the 12 that we've responded to, we're at absolute maximum capacity at the moment. And that is the front and centre focus for the board at Miners Promise and the organisation as a whole, is to secure ongoing sustainable funding to make sure we can continue to fulfil our purpose to the industry.
And would you say there's specific projects or certain areas that actually need more resources and more funding in the work that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I said, we're at the moment, due to the sheer volume, we're just funding the essential supports for families and doing a comprehensive cover of that, making sure that the families are getting what they need. What we would like in the future would be to be able to move into the space where we can proactively support leaders to respond to these incidents, work with them to build their critical response plan into a more holistic approach that covers all of this side of the fence, so that Miners Promise can work in partnership with organisations. So that's something we really want to be focusing on should funding be available. We would like to share all of our knowledge with the industry as well of what we've learned over a decade plus of dealing with these tragedies across the country, across multiple organisations. What works well, what doesn't work well, what's going to get the best outcome for the organisation, the leaders on site, and obviously the families involved, so that everybody can move forward in their own time, in their own way, to the best of their ability, with as least stress and trauma as possible. So that's something that we are heavily focused on should we secure, further ongoing funding.
And obviously partnerships are often crucial for obviously charitable organisations to obviously be able to achieve their purpose. Can you sort of discuss any collaborations that you have with obviously organisations or industries and even mining companies that help fulfil your mission?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, we wouldn't be anywhere where we are today without the Chamber of Minerals and Energy of Western Australia, so CME, as we would call them in Perth. Look, they've supported Miners Promise for over a decade, providing us with the co-location. So our offices are co-located with CME in Perth. So we're very, very grateful for that, so that we are, we've got the use of some of their resources. They're very, very generous in terms of providing some of their internal synergies for us to benefit from, which has really propped our organisation up. And we don't have to then spend additional funds on administrative and, the usual keeping a business running. So very, very grateful to CME. Look, we've got, like I said, lots of organisations that we've worked with that have seen extreme value in what we've provided, and they wanted to give back. So I won't name companies, of course, but you know who you are, and we're very, very grateful for your support. We need more of that, obviously ongoing, from not just those companies, but from the resource and mining and oil and gas sectors at large. So without their support, we literally would not exist. So it's very, very grateful for that. I'd like to acknowledge as well the board of directors for Miners Promise. So people may not know, but each and every board member is a volunteer. So they're mining executives from all around Australia and globally as well, that share their expertise and knowledge pro bono, and some of those have done that for 10 plus years. So we wouldn't be anywhere without those expertise. We certainly don't spend any money at all on paying anyone for any senior executive expertise. It's all done, after hours, weekends, and all of those sort of things to make sure that this is ticking, because we really believe that this is so important for our industry. And look, I wanted to do a shout out as well to a guy called Steve Posnick from Dirty Hole Designs. So we moved to the other end of the spectrum here. Now, Steve is a jumbo operator and trainer in North Queensland state in Australia, and he has generously donated his artistic skills and time to support Miners Promise over many, many years. He creates memorial stickers, which he then promotes and people purchase, and he donates 100% of the proceeds directly to Miners Promise. So, for example, there's been a death recently in Ballarat and a very life-threatening injury for a 37-year-old Kurt and 21-year-old Connor, which everyone in Australia is aware of. It happened last month. Now, Steve has personally got on his social media and blasted his stickers everywhere, and he's raised $6,600 directly for these families through Miners Promise to support them. So Steve, he's a unsung Aussie hero in our book, and really wanted to acknowledge his support. So it's from the big chunks we get from mining companies through to the people dipping into their individual pockets, and people fundraising. Every single dollar counts, and it really, really matters to us. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. Looking at the future, What's some of the goals Miners Promise hopes to achieve? And are there any new sort of programs, initiatives that you're excited about launching?
Yeah, well, like I said, we'd like to do some more work with the mining companies directly. So not just in a time of tragedy, but in a more proactive space, so that the leaders are better prepared to handle these situations when they're faced with them, because essentially leaders are people too, right? And nobody is equipped to deal with these horrible situations. You know, when you come to work, unfortunately, it's just something that comes with the industry at the moment, and everyone is trying to, you know, eradicate, you know, on-site deaths, on-site injuries every single day. Every single worker is working towards that. But if we can better equip people and organisations to deal with those, it's a better experience overall in a very, very tragic time. But look, we've had feedback from the industry that they would like us to have a look at supporting people who've been injured permanently, for example, or, you know, had some kind of impairment from working, or even just emotional support. And we're not in a position to be able to offer that at the moment. It is only, you know, the actual deaths that we're able to work with. But we would like to expand services. We have the, you know, the in-house expertise and the capability to do that. It's just the funding to be able to support those people who've experienced, you know, permanent disability or injury. And also, you know, the on-site suicide space. This is not something that we can typically, you know, look to fund due to the sheer volume that we know happens in the fly-in, fly-out sites. It's the elephant in the room in the industry, and everyone in every capacity is working to support people working in these environments to make sure that, you know, everyone comes home safely. So we'd like to be doing more in that space as well. So there's lots of possibilities to help the industry. We just, need to fund it adequately to be able to provide that.
Yeah. A question I want to ask both of you two. How do you feel? Obviously, you've been working for the organisation or the charity for a while now. How do you feel each time you're involved in a tragedy that happens? Because obviously you're busy organising and working through a particular process with obviously the various stakeholders, the people that are involved, and other relevant bodies. And it's a process, obviously, you go through. But how do you actually feel hearing each tragedy and working through that? Because I suppose it does put a strain on your own lives as well, and obviously your whole thought processes. I just wanted to get your take on taking how you feel when you're approaching each tragedy, because obviously they're going to be all different.
Do you want to kick that one off, Sarah?
Yeah. Rob, our team of family support advisors and myself, so we have processes in place that allow our team to be able to navigate that and talk with our own experts, if you will, to be able to really ensure that it doesn't become too overwhelming for myself and my team, because as you've pointed out there, it is, it's tough. You're walking alongside families in their in their most overwhelming time of grief. So it is really, really important that our team be very, that are mindful of, that they are they're across that, themselves and how they're coping. And we have a lot of systems and processes here to ensure that we keep checking in with one another, and that we do have that system in place for our team. And it's lovely that you asked that question, because it is, you are experiencing families' grief, and it's it is heartbreaking, and absolutely.
And Laura?
Look, from my perspective, I'm not as close to the action as Sarah, sitting on the board. However, Sarah reports, the details of each of these tragedies, and we're all deeply impacted every single board meeting, reading through the cases that Sarah and the team have supported. And all I can say from the board's perspective is we're immensely proud of the work that the team deliver, the high quality. We have a strong culture of care across the board in the organisation, and we're constantly checking in with each other. I can think of an email that Sarah's sent out to somebody this week in the team, and it's been back and forth, just checking. We've got personal things, we've all got our own lives, and we're all very caring and concerned about making sure that everybody is, mentally well within the team and supported. So the support you see on the outside certainly extends across the organisation internally as well. But immensely proud of the work and the level of resilience and determination of the team to continue delivering the purpose.
Yeah. And lastly, question to Sarah. How can our listeners, and obviously the listeners to this podcast, the majority of them are people within our industry, and obviously this is global, so there may be other organisations in other countries and jurisdictions that may offer a similar type of service. But if we're obviously looking at Australia with this particular episode, how can our listeners contribute or offer support to Miners Promise?
Thank you, Rob. Please encourage all the mining resources companies to reach out to us, sponsor us, please partner us, donate to us. We're the only charity of our kind in Australia, that's for sure. There's no other charity doing what we do. Please reach out to me directly, or you can donate straight through the Miners Promise website online there. There is another partnership that we offer to companies, and it's what we term our fee-for-service partnership. And we work with a lot of incredible companies. And we offer specialised support. Companies pay a very small fee based on a retainer fee based on employee numbers. Then they have access to our very specialised care and team for non-workplace fatalities, so personal crises that their employees experience. So we work with some really caring companies who offer that to their employees, and we step in and support them. And in those cases, the company then pays for those tailored supports. So that's another opportunity if companies are interested and they need, if they'd like to really take that step in providing, care to their employees. That's also available to them. But please, reach out to me anytime, or they can just donate directly to the website. But we'd love to hear from our industry.
Yeah. We'll include those obviously in our show notes, and really appreciate you coming onto the podcast and obviously sharing what you do and the services that you provide. And hopefully you're not in too many situations, but I guess life is life and tragedies obviously do happen. And at least our audience who are listening, at least they can be aware of an organisation like yourself. And even the listeners can obviously speak to other people within their organisation. Whoever's listening, please go and speak to certain people, maybe in the health and safety teams and the rescue teams, and obviously make them aware of your charity and your organisation, because no doubt they would need your services.
That'd be amazing, because Rob, we have a terrible awareness problem here in Australia. We haven't done the greatest of jobs with that. So what you're saying there is absolutely invaluable for if somebody's hearing this podcast, and please tell others, because people are saying, I've never even heard of this organisation. Miners what? It's Miners Promise. But please let organisations know that we are here.
Yeah, no, great. And obviously, if there's anything I can do, happy to obviously promote this episode, and obviously we should have other episodes as well. Maybe you want to come on later this year and also next year, and give us updates on certain things. And I suppose obviously it's, again, this whole podcast, the reason why I'm doing this podcast is to educate our mining industry, and this is certainly something that I would like to obviously push out there a lot more, so at least organizations and people within our mining industry is aware of your service. Should anything happen, obviously a tragedy should happen, and obviously you'll be able to expand your services as well by having more eyes on your organization, and people being more aware of what you're of what you do and how you can help them. And I think you got both of you two obviously coming on the podcast today. I think you're doing some great work from just hearing a little bit about what you're doing as an organization. I obviously did a little bit of research before doing this podcast as well, and I think you girls are doing really great, and obviously the rest of your team as well. So obviously keep up the good work, and obviously happy to help and assist where I can, and obviously helping promote the organization.
Thank you, Rob. We are really, really grateful. Laura touched on it earlier. We hear from general managers on mine sites who say that, they tell their colleagues, you just want to get through your whole career without losing someone on site. We know it is devastating for our mining companies. And what you said there, please know if if your company does experience tragedy, please pick up the phone, give us a call, use the specialized services that we have here.
Yeah. And obviously, as I mentioned, the podcast is listened to most countries around the world. So anyone else that's listening to this podcast that is outside of Australia, maybe you might want to share this episode with other people in a similar companies or similar charities, to maybe do some collaboration with yourselves. Even them reaching out to you if they're in various countries around the world, to see some of the experiences that you're going through and what they can potentially learn from yourselves as well, and that they could implement in their own countries. So this episode really needs to be shared within our industry. So all those that are listening, please share this episode with everyone that you know within our industry, and I suppose outside of our industry, because again, it can be educational to other industries, not just the mining industry. Certainly an episode that should be shared, if more than any other episode. So that'd be great if you could do that. Is there any last thoughts from either of yourselves?
I just wanted to say thank you so much for having us on here, Rob, and thank you to Sarah and the team for the continued amazing work that they do. You inspire us every single day. And look, to all the companies out there, I'm going to ask you to dig deep on the Dig Deep podcast and support Miners Promise, so we can continue supporting the Australian mining and oil and gas industries when you need us the most. Thank you.
Yeah, and Sarah, any last words?
No, just that was beautiful, Laura. Thank you so much, Rob. This has been really incredible, and we're really, really grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Like I said, happy for you to come on the podcast again later this year, next year. Obviously share the awareness as well and help obviously promote the organization. And I think sometimes whoever's listening, sometimes it might not apply to you right this minute, but I'm sure throughout your mining careers and life, and because what you find is obviously when you're in mining, you tend to stay in mining for long periods of time for the rest of your career. There's probably going to be times during your career where your service could be relevant to the individual, whether it's close or whether it's someone that you know. So I encourage everyone to obviously, as I said previously, share this episode to everyone within our industry. So thank you, girls. Really appreciate that.
Thank you.
And those that are listening, really appreciate you continue to support this podcast. And as I've mentioned, this episode should be shared. Every one of you listening should share this episode. Make at least one other person aware of Miners Promise as an organization, because you will probably need their services one time during your mining career. So let's finish on the high, and really that's spread the message. Obviously the charity needs funds, and because obviously that's how they survive. So please share this. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Obviously reach out to them if you have any questions or need their support, and obviously please, any donations would obviously help them. So until next time, happy mining.
Thank you for listening. Remember to reach out to Rob via the show notes, and be sure to subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, happy mining, helping each other to improve the mining industry.